What up, everybody? This is your boy Dedrian Colon from House of Wrestling, and this is my review for the November 7th episode of WWE Monday Night Raw. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification so that way you're notified when the House of Wrestling drops its latest content. Follow me, Dedrian180, on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. So, tonight's Monday Night Raw. Man, oh man, this is a very interesting Monday Night Raw. I am gonna let you guys know that this review, I'm not gonna go more into detail as far as the matches and stuff like that that I normally do with Raw and my other wrestling reviews. More so because tonight's Monday Night Raw was very weird. Um, Everything from the crowd, I believe they were in Wilkes-Barre, or Wilkesburg, whatever. I believe they're in Pennsylvania or something like that. I don't know, but that crowd was very um, just quiet in normal spots where a crowd would cheer, which is really interesting right off the bat. And then just how things played out in this show. We did get a lot of teases, or a few teases for Survivor Series and the women's match for War Games. So it's going to add a lot of curiosity, speculation, and of course, with it being in Boston, Sasha Banks and Naomi, will they be returning at Survivor Series? My percentage is about 70% that they will be returning at Survivor Series. It would be highly disappointing if it's not Sasha Banks and Naomi. But other than that, I mean, the ending of Raw was just something that, man, it was just really weird. I did tweet as this main event was going on that, paraphrasing, but like some of these elements in this main event was stuff that you saw in WCW in 2000, from March of 2000 till the end of 2000. And granted, I'm not saying that it's going to go out of business like WCW. When you always make comparisons to, whenever someone makes comparisons to WCW 2000, people are like, oh, you're saying it's going to, like, no, I'm not saying it, but I'm saying that the booking has elements of it which will really make people question, and more question like, okay, why am I watching? Like, this is weird. Like, what? Just like a lot of this stuff tonight was just it really didn't help that the crowd was quiet for most of the matches, and then on top of that, you had just certain things that played out that were just very vague, trivial, and somewhat subdued, which is what I've described most of the storylines that WWE has presented outside of Roman and Bray Wyatt. That everything else is somewhat like very vague, trivial, and subdued. And granted, it's only been since the end of July, but yeah, it's really weird and interesting. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting 2 months to see how this year finishes out for WWE, but also how everything's going to play out leading into Royal Rumble and WrestleMania next season. But enough of that. I'm going to give you guys the results and just go through my review, a very general review of things that happened on tonight's Monday Night Raw. So, opening match, you had the Usos and Solo Sikoa. They defeated New Day and Matt Riddle. Then you had Baron Corbin defeat Cedric Alexander. You had Otis defeat Elias. You had Austin Theory defeat Shelton Benjamin. Then you had The Miz defeat Johnny Gargano. And in the main event, you had Seth Rollins defeat Austin Theory and Bobby Lashley. And that last part, I know you're going to be like, what the hell do you mean? Austin Theory cashed in his Money in the Bank for the United States title, and Bobby Lashley was answering Seth Rollins' open challenge. Make you think about that. Let me repeat that. Seth Rollins defeated Austin Theory, who cashed in his Money in the Bank opportunity briefcase for a chance to defeat Seth Rollins for his United States title, while Bobby Lashley answered Seth Rollins' open challenge for the United States world title at the same time. Bobby Lashley's was first, and then Theory came in later after Bobby Lashley just destroyed him and he just beat him and everything. So yeah, that's the main event. So I'll get into that a little bit later. It started out with the Usos and Solo Sikoa. They came out. Then they showed, their win, or Roman Reigns and the Usos and Solo Sikoa at the end of Crown Jewel and victory over Logan Paul. Then they were promoting their New Day match with on SmackDown this Friday. New Day comes out, and right off the bat, when I was watching this, I noticed something really weird, because normally when New Day and Usos come out, like, the crowd is really into it, and I noticed as they started talking, and when there was like moments where nobody was speaking, the crowd was silent. Like, and I'm like, man, this is weird. It's like, all right, maybe because usually that happens on Raw. You just hit, they'll be very, for the most part, very no loud, like very little crowd reaction, and then it'll just pick up and everything. And what was weird was that the Usos and New Day really were saying some really great stuff. I recommend you guys go watch that, because it was a really, they were dropping some stuff that was like, man, this is cool. Biggest line, or one of the biggest lines, was, we built our legacy on our own, and you guys built your legacy on your family. So that was something that was really good. And mind you, that's some really deep stuff and really somewhat truthful. And when these lines were said, mind you, you had, Kofi say, we built our own legacy, and, his telling the Usos, you guys built your legacy on your families. There was very little crowd reaction. And when that happened, I'm watching and I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be a long night. Like, this is going to be long. Like, oh boy, this is not good. So yeah, Riddle comes out, and Jay tells him to shut up. Riddle, he asks him, hey, you want to hit my bong? And he asks New Day. Jimmy hits the bongos, and he hits it more than twice. And then Riddle, this was actually a funny line. He tells him, hey, you know the rules. Tap, tap, pass. That was funny. And even that line, hilarious. It's Riddle. Very little crowd reaction. It's like, man, what's going on here? Like, man, this is really weird. And one thing I've also noticed, and man, you could say it goes back to Clash at the Castle, that a lot of the Raw crowds, some of the SmackDown crowds, I've noticed it, but not as much, because of course it's 2 hours and you have, Roman Reigns, and for the most part, SmackDown is a very fast-paced show, and most of the Raws have had very little crowd reaction, where the matches are, mind you, most of the matches on Raw, with the exception of a few squash matches and everything, but for the most part, most of these matches on Raw are pretty good, like really good. And spots that you would anticipate the crowd to react, or better yet, in years past, those same spots would have gotten a decent crowd reaction. It's very little. And it's like, man, this is all right. We're getting all these returns from people who are released and they're coming back. They get a pop. It's like outside of that, it's like, okay, this crowd is really interesting. And I use this line tonight on Twitter, and it was basically that in some ways, some WWE fans are not all, some WWE fans are conditioned to witness a WWE show as opposed to experiencing a WWE show. And the difference between that is when you witness something, you just, you witness, let's say a tree falling. Like, yeah, I saw this tree fall, and, you're describing what you witnessed as opposed to, yeah, I went to Universal Studios and you describe your experience. Big difference. And that's something that I've noticed because those fans that go for the WWE experience, they're vocal. They're, yeah, man, this is cool. Yeah, man, they have the championship belts. They're screaming. Those are fans that are there for the experience as opposed to some of these other fans that's unfortunately, and you know what? I wouldn't say it's their fault or anything. It's just because WWE has been the only game in town for up until 2018. It's just, hey, I'm witnessing WWE. I went there, yeah, it was a cool show. But I saw this. It's like really weird. So yeah, after that you had New Day and Riddle versus the Bloodline, and man, it's so the crowd again. The crowd's still silent, not silent. Very little crowd reaction, and I don't know if it's because the crowd has gotten New Day versus Usos fatigue. Because, I mean, we have seen the Usos versus the New Day for almost 7 years. So it's like, 7 years is a long time to have a feud that's been, for the most part on your television for most of those years. Like, that's something. So I don't know if it was that, but it was decent match. Really cool. A lot of hot tags. There's a nice spot where Jimmy Uso broke up the frog splash. Solo caught Kofi in midair and then hit him with a right hook, I believe. Then you had the was it the frog splash by Jimmy? And then at that point you had "This Is Awesome" chants, which didn't. This is the other weird thing. Like at that point in the match, like it was they were into, like, the match just picked up and you had "This Is Awesome, this is awesome," and it was like for a few seconds that was it. Like it wasn't like this for at least 10 to 15 seconds. Like, no, this was like maybe 3 to 5 seconds and that was it. Like it wasn't even long. It was just like, man, okay, this is really weird. Then you had Riddle executing RKO, and then you had Solo Sikoa do the solo, the spinning solo. 1, 2, 3, they win. Then they go to a recap of Lesnar and Lashley. We get a promo with JBL and Baron Corbin. He disses the Phillies. He calls them snowflakes and, what was the term he used? Snowflake woke. What? And that's the other thing, like with the JBL stuff, like when he came out, I'm like, man, why did they put him here when, like, the first segment and the first match, the crowd was like, just very little crowd reaction up until everything went fast paced. It's just like, man, that's weird. And he came out and it was just, and like I've mentioned before on other Raws, and I've actually tweeted this, I don't understand why WWE, they get those wide shots of the crowd just sitting there. Like I don't understand that because um granted, you want to show that the place is full, but if they got a shot that was like the the shot that comes to mind is if you go watch the old Monday Night Raws from like 1990, late 97, 98, there was a unique shot that they got of the whole arena that was more, they would zoom all the way out where it would make it like a massive arena and you really couldn't tell the crowd reaction as opposed to now where they get a shot that's wide but then you look and like you see nobody's like moving, as opposed to those shots back in the early or the late 90s where it was a wide shot but you couldn't make out what the crowd was doing. If they were doing something, it was just you just saw a sea of people. And really interesting why they do that, especially when times like this where the show, like the crowd is just not, um, they're displaying a little crowd reaction. It's like really interesting. Then we get Corbin versus Cedric Alexander. Yes, Cedric Alexander made an appearance. Corbin attacked him. Cedric got some offense in. Corbin wound up doing the end of days. That was the match. Literally, that was the match. And there wasn't anything post-match as far as teasing Cedric and Shelton Benjamin, which there's been speculation, things going around that we could, they were mentioned, possibly thinking of reuniting the Hurt Business, which right now wouldn't be bad. After that, you got Seth Rollins open challenge. He's backstage walking, and they're like, yeah, Seth Rollins open challenge. Then we get Seth Rollins comes out. The crowd is singing his song, which is really cool. And actually, I would say Seth Rollins, the crowd singing Seth Rollins' song was probably the longest chant on the show. Outside of anything else, like it was the longest reaction. So you had that. The crowd was singing the song. Then he's like, all right, who's going to take this challenge? And then you had Judgment Day come out. Now, this part was really intriguing, really interesting. It's like, ooh, Judgment Day and Seth Rollins. Like, okay, didn't expect to see this combination. It's like, this is going to be interesting. So they come in, and you have Finn Balor, and he tells Seth Rollins, hey, you cost me the WWE Championship. You remember when Finn Balor won the Universal Champion? He was the first Universal Champion, and his shoulder was messed up because of the turnbuckle bomb that Seth actually executed outside the ring, which messed up his shoulder. So nice callback from that. I really liked that. I was like, ooh, that hasn't been mentioned in a while, and that's actually true. And he never got his rematch for Seth. So they call back to that. Then the OC comes out, and you have the OC and the Judgment Day. They're faced off, and you have Seth Rollins in the middle, and he's looking. So he like slowly gets out the ring and walks to the back. And you have ajstyles tell them it's far from over, and Balor replies, hey, the OC and the club, it's done. It's old news. And AJ Styles was like, yeah, we noticed that it's always 3-on-4, but we couldn't find a woman to join us, but she found us and she joined us. So Rhea Ripley's outside. She gets attacked by someone with blue hair and a hoodie. Woman takes off the hoodie. It's Mia Yim. Yes, Mia Yim has joined the OC. All these people start brawling and everything. AJ Styles winds up doing a Styles Clash on Dominic, and they pose and everything. It was speculated or reported, back on Friday that her return was soon. So, I mean, it's good to see Mia Yim on WWE. She had a really sweet run in Impact Wrestling, and I actually tweeted this. It's really weird to think about that in 1 month, Impact Wrestling has lost Doc Gallows, Carl Anderson, Mia Yim, Matt Taven, Mike Bennett, and Maria Kanellis. And Vincent is still a free agent, so you could put him in there. All those people within 1 month to either WWE or AEW. That's insane. So we get a preview of Survivor Series, War Games promo. Then we get a backstage segment with Seth Rollins. He's being interviewed, and he's like, tonight the people will get, I told the people I was going to do it, and they're going to get it. And honestly, this show, outside of the really unusual, weird stuff, this was kind of like a slow babyface turn for Seth Rollins in a way. So they're kind of seeing the crowd reaction that Seth Rollins getting, and he's kind of going in that babyface. Should be already. I've been saying it for so long. Then we get Otis versus Elias. Again, this match, the crowd, man, I think that's the unfortunate thing about tonight's show, that the major thing that stood out about this show was the little crowd reaction for the whole show. That it was just really weird, and you had some cool stuff, but the little crowd reaction, and then of course, like I said, I'm going to get to the ending. But I mean, Elias, he attempted to slam Otis, backfired. He basically did like the Hogan Andre spot from WrestleMania 3. Otis wound up getting an elbow. Then Otis wound up doing not a fall away, a fall forward slam on Elias, pinned him 1, 2, 3. That was it. There was no post-match shenanigans or anything. And that was another weird thing about tonight's show, that most of the matches, there was no post-match shenanigans or anything like that, which for the past couple of weeks, like, man, there's been a lot of run-ins, but just really like, okay, you have this match and all right, that's it. And there's like a little build to the match, and then that's it. Like, just really unorthodox. I can't say that it's bad. It's just very unorthodox. Like, okay, that's all right. Then we get a backstage segment with Judgment Day. They found someone who could take. Actually, let me rephrase that. This was Dominic Mysterio's line. I got to correct myself on that. This was Dominic Mysterio's actual line. They found someone who could take on mommy. Of course, she has I'm Your Mommy shirts. They just released it on WWE.com this morning, and looked pretty cool. But him saying that, I was just like, what? And it was weird because when he said that, you had Balor say his stuff, you had Damian Priest say his stuff, then you have Dominic smash the mic, and he just says that in his. Let me try to. They found someone to take on mommy. Like, that's like not a lot of convincing me that she's a threat. Like, I know Rhea Ripley's a threat, but it's not convincing me. Once she spoke up, they're walking. You have Judgment Day, Mysterio. You have all the guys walk, and then Rhea Ripley's like behind, and she walks and she stops and she turns to her right and she looks, and you have this brief stare down between her and Bianca Belair. So they're teasing something. Could Rhea Ripley be one of the additions to the women's War Games match? Could be. Could it be a tease for a Royal Rumble match? Could be. Could it be a tease for a WrestleMania match? Could be. All three things that I just said are a strong possibility because knowing Triple H, he's not going to tease something like that unless it's going to go somewhere. And I think it's pretty evident that that's something that might happen, especially I mean, the women's division needs something like a feud like that because right now it's just very stagnant. It's not regressed, it's just like there. Um to some extent you could say it's regressed, but for the most part it's just stagnant. Like there isn't anything that's like taking it here, but it's not anything that's taken down, so it's just like just there. Then we get uh, Bianca Belair with Asuka and Alexa Bliss. This is pretty much a segment describing earlier today, and there's an altercation, and um, actually no, this was the promo in the ring. Forgive me, guys. Read my notes. It's one of those nights where that's what it was. Excuse me. So you had Bianca Belair and Asuka and Alexa Bliss. They come out to the ring, and you have Damage Control. They come out, and then so you had Bianca and Alexa go back and forth with Bayley and Dakota Kai. So they're going back and forth, and then you had Io Sky and Asuka go back and forth verbally in Japanese. And it was pretty cool. It was like, okay, man, it's like, all right, man, this is pretty interesting. They're going back and forth. They're just going back and forth. And the line that caused the brawl was Io Sky looking at Asuka and saying, bitch. Like, that's what called it. Bitch. Like, that was it. And it was just like, all right. I mean, it is what it is, but like, all right. So they start brawling. Then out of nowhere, you have Nikki Cross attacks Bianca Belair, and there, of course, commentators like, what does she have to do with this? And before she attacked them, Bianca Belair's like, you know what, we're going to settle this in War Games. And according to their flyer for War Games that WWE tweeted out, normally it's 4. I know for NXT, when they did War Games with the old school NXT and new school NXT, it was 4 opponents. The flyer has Bayley, Dakota Kai, Io Sky, Nikki Cross, and a vacant slot. So that's 5. And then on the other side, you got Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss, Asuka, and 2 spots. So this is going to be very interesting. My prediction for this is, I think the spot for Bayley's team, I believe that's going to be Rhea Ripley. And I believe for Bianca's team, it's probably going to be Sasha Banks and Naomi. I do think that's a strong possibility. Now, things could change. It could be Charlotte. It could be Becky Lynch if she's healed. It could be like there's a number of ways they can do this. I mean, we could have Rhea Ripley join Bayley's team, and we could have Charlotte and Becky Lynch fill that spot. But I don't think that because you're going to have Survivor Series War Games in Boston, and Sasha Banks is from Boston, so think it's kind of predictable Sasha Banks will be on one of these teams. So we'll see about that. Then we had Austin Theory, Shelton Benjamin. Of course, this match was brought about because of a backstage confrontation. Basically, Shelton Benjamin started off with mat wrestling. Then Austin Theory got the upper hand. Did the oh man, I'm brain locking right now. The Shelton's head on the ropes. Yeah, you guys get what I'm saying. Then Austin Theory wound up doing the A-Town down, pinned him 1, 2, 3. It was a very quick match. It wasn't too long. It wasn't. Maybe it was about 5 to 7 minutes. It wasn't that long. It just went really quick, which was unfortunate because, like, man, I would like people were like, man, this is a pretty good match. It started off pretty decent. It was like, man, I really wish this match would have been like 10 minutes, and nope, like 5, 7 minutes, and that was it. Then we get The Miz comes out. It's a smear campaign. My father believes Johnny. I'm gonna, tell this story to Hollywood, and I was meeting with a Hollywood producer. I got my lawyers for a defamation lawsuit. And Johnny Gargano comes out. He's like, well, I guess I am the whistleblower. And he says, I need stronger evidence. And he tells him the movie producer you were meeting with was a private investigator. And we have this video footage. So they show the footage. And basically, The Miz admits that everything that Johnny Gargano was saying was true. That he paid Loomis to act like he was stalking him, which he wasn't, just to get, his end result. So that wound up happening. The Miz says it's not true. So we get Johnny Gargano and The Miz. They're wrestling. Gargano uses it's basically most of the match. He does execute the backstabber. Then Gargano did a really cool spear from the second rope. He was on the apron and he speared The Miz going into the ring, which was really cool because he didn't even graze the top rope and the middle rope. Like he just went right. It was really cool. So you had that. Then you had The Miz. He was outside the ring. And this was actually a really cool spot because I didn't notice it the first time. And when they showed the replay, I was like, man, that's pretty interesting. So The Miz was by the ring apron. And he acts like someone pulls him. And it was so cool the way he did it because when you saw it on the replay, he was moving his hand. He used his hands to crawl backwards. And it looked like someone grabbed him because you didn't notice. But then it's like, wait a minute, nobody grabbed him. So he went there underneath the ring. And then he crawls back out. And he has one of the turnbuckle the turnbuckle wrenches. I think that's what they call them. And the ref is underneath the ring looking. And he uses that. And he hits Gargano. He pins Gargano. 1, 2, 3. He's leaving out the entrance. Dexter Lumis comes. Hits him in the chair, puts the chair down, looks at him, then he sees security, and Dexter Lumis leaves, and that's pretty much that segment. Then we get a backstage segment with Damage Control with Nikki Cross, and they're basically telling her you could break down Dana Brooke, which leads to Nikki Cross and Dana Brooke for the 24/7 title. Yeah. Haven't seen Dana Brooke in quite a while, and 24/7 title. I know she did an interview where she mentioned that, it'd be cool if the 24/7 title was a mid-card women's title. I don't know about that. But yeah, this match, let's see. She did how do I describe this? So Nikki Cross had most of the advantage, and she wound up doing a attempted suplex, but Nikki Cross put Dana Brooke's feet on the top turnbuckle, and then a spinning suplex pinned her 1, 2, 3, and when that happened, there was no crowd reaction. And again, like I've said in this review, there was little to no crowd reaction with this crowd, which was very bizarre. So we get that. They go to commercial. They come back, and Damage Control is walking around, and you see Nikki Cross. She's looking up like this. She's looking like this, and she has a 24/7 title. And she missed the garbage can because you could tell she was supposed to take that title, and dump it in the garbage, which was similar to what um, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall did in WCW, where they dumped the television title in the garbage. So it's just like, all right, and they're just walking and walking. Then we get a backstage segment with the OC and Mia Yim. They're basically hyping up her returning and everything. And it's crazy because, like I mentioned earlier in this review, Mia Yim, the Good Brothers, were on Impact Television literally a month ago. Like, actually 2 months ago, they were on Impact Wrestling. And within less than a 2 month period, they're on WWE, which that's a whole nother video with Impact and NWA and those two companies, because that's 2023 is going to be an interesting year in professional wrestling. I'll just leave it at that. Then we get Seth Rollins. He comes out and he mentions, hey, this is our tonight's, 10 years that I've been in WWE. It's like, oh, wow, it's really cool. So he's like, all right, who's going to take this challenge? Mustafa Ali interrupts. He's like, dude, I'm going to take this challenge. So he's talking, and then he looks, and all of a sudden someone just beats him up. You don't see who it is. The camera doesn't pan or anything. So he gets beat up, and then it's Bobby Lashley. And Bobby Lashley's like, you know what? I manhandled Brock Lesnar. I only lost the title because Brock Lesnar interfered. So I'm going to get my rematch. I'm going to answer the open challenge. And Mustafa Ali tries to fight back, and he tosses Ali like a pillow. So Bobby Lashley comes out. He's attacking Seth. I mean, he's using every power move. He does a running. He has Seth Rollins in like a fireman's carry position, and he just runs headfirst into the ring post a couple times. So Seth Rollins is just laid out. Then he choke slams him through the announce table. He walks off. Then this is where things get weird. You have, and they've been mentioning this before about the Money in Bank being cashed in for not only world titles, because you did have Austin Theory go to NXT and tease him cashing in the NXT title. So Austin Theory comes out and he cashes in the Money in the Bank on Seth Rollins. So you have that. He cashes in. Seth Rollins kicks out of 4 to 5 near pinfalls. Yes, he kicks out of 4 to 5 near pinfalls. Lashley comes back. He attacks, I believe it was Theory. Yeah, he attacked Theory. He's beating him up. Rams Theory into the ring post, same way he did Seth Rollins. So these guys are both laid out. Seth Rollins and Austin Theory. Now I want to reiterate and make this a great point. This was an open challenge. So Austin Theory he didn't have to cash in the Money in the Bank contract. He didn't need to. Like, he could have just answered the open challenge and faced Seth Rollins. But, of course, the sneakiness behind the Money in the Bank, like, hey, let me get my opponent when he's weak. Can understand that, but then at the same time, it's like, it's an open challenge. So, like, if you lose and he's weak, you can, like, I don't know, it's just really weird how that played out. So you have that. Then Lashley puts the Hurt Lock on Theory, and I mean, he has him in the Hurt Lock. He throws him in the ring. That allows Seth Rollins to execute the curbside stomp, pins him 1, 2, 3. Seth Rollins wins. So Seth Rollins retains the United States Championship, and Austin Theory failed at cashing in the Money in the Bank Championship or Money in the Bank briefcase opportunity for the United States Championship. So, that is my review for the November 7th episode of WWE Monday Night Raw. Quick review before I finish this video. that ending, man, for me, it was too much for that main event. I understand elevating the United States title, which they've done perfectly for both the Intercontinental and the United States title, but having Theory cash in on the secondary title and have him lose doesn't help him because he was already being pushed. And for me, him having the briefcase, it was already like, in my case, for me as a fan, like him cashing in was like the projection was like lowered when I seen him on NXT attempting or teasing a cash in for the NXT title. And I'm like, wait a minute, you just like you cashed in twice, like you attempted to uh try to cash in on Roman, at least twice, and you got the hell beat out of you. So you're like, Roman Reigns is too much for me, so I'm gonna go for the United States or the NXT title and then the United States title, which that makes his character weak and not in a good way. Like you're not even gonna try some sneaky way to get the title. You're just gonna not do it. And mind you, this is anything that Austin Theory said, but this is how they're projecting it. And having him lose this way, it was like basically you should have just had him try to cash in on Roman and lose. At least he's going after the big guy that, man, I couldn't beat him with the Money in the Bank, and you can run that back later on. But to do it this way was just really weird. And, then adding on the crowd, the little crowd reaction throughout the night on just certain things that were going on. And of course, this is awesome chance, but just a few seconds and then that was it. Just a really unusual, unorthodox show. It was cool to see Mia Yim. It's really see how that works out. But man, WWE is in a weird place right now. Of course, there's a lot of, you could say enthusiasm. I'm not going to say excitement, but there's a lot of enthusiasm as far as the people that have returned that were released the past 2 years. Hey, get the bag. You want to go back? Cool, get the bag. Yet at the same time, it just seems like most of WWE's just what they're presenting is returns from people that were released that Triple H work with and a little bit of celebrity involvement. Like that's what it basically is. And like I mentioned earlier in this review that most of the storylines outside of Bray Wyatt and Roman Reigns, and for most of the people that have returned so far, excluding Mia Yim, most of the storylines are pretty. You could throw in the Good Brothers too, because I mean, it was like with that storyline, it's like okay, the Good Brothers need to join. It'll just fit right away. But again, at the same time, what's going to happen once that storyline finishes with the Good Brothers, and AJ? Like, who are they going to move on to next? Most of the storylines around most of the people that have returned, it's been very vague, trivial, and slightly subdued. Where it's just like, okay, they're here, but all right, Hit Row comes back and they're facing maximum male models who have very little character momentum. Who else? Candice LeRae, she comes back and the feud that they brought her in, or I can't remember who it was they brought her in against Damage Control. The women's division, it's not it hasn't been presented with a lot of momentum and enthusiasm and just like intrigue. It's just been very vague and trivial. So it's like, trying to think of who else. Karrion Kross, like all these wrestlers that they brought back like are extremely talented, but it's just the situations they brought them in have been very, like I said, very vague and trivial and somewhat subdued. Where it's just like, all right, let's see how this plays out. But it's just like right now, as you're bringing them in, it ain't clicking. So we gotta wait till what's gonna happen with Royal Rumble and going into WrestleMania and after that. But I don't know, man. This was just a very weird Monday Night Raw. See what happens next week and see what happens on SmackDown. But man, this is very weird. And mind you, Survivor Series is little close to 2 weeks. So there's not much time for Monday Night Raw. I mean, you literally have 14, 21. Yeah, you literally have 2 Monday Night Raw shows till Survivor Series. So you only have two. So you have 2 Monday Night Raw shows to build to Survivor Series. And let's face it, the build to Survivor Series so far has just been hype. Hey, there's 2 War Game matches. We already have the women's match, which is, I mentioned earlier, was it 2, 3, 4, 5? Yeah, 5 people. Yeah, Alexa. Yeah, 5 people. So I don't know. We just got to see how this plays out, which is normally what we do as fans with most wrestling promotions. But yeah, WWE is in a weird spot. Sasha Banks comes back at Survivor Series. It's gonna be dope. Gonna get a loud crowd reaction. But again, a lot of people's I don't want to say concerned, but a lot of people's what they're really looking at is, okay, you're gonna get this return, you're gonna get the pop, but where are they gonna go as far as the storyline and the character and the character momentum, and who are you gonna face them with someone that has some character momentum going, whether they're face or heel? That's a big question. So we'll see what happens. But that is my review for the November 7th episode of WB Monday Night Raw. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification so that you're notified when the House of Wrestling drops its latest content. Follow me, Dedrian180, on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Enjoy wrestling. Let's just have fun. Whatever way we can have fun. I'm out.